And so there was this big moment. I remember like us sitting in the house together, like, okay, what's our plan going to be? And we didn't agree. I was like, we can do it. We can do this. Like, we can build a business. This is great. We can have a team.
Wait, but I thought you were the one.
Right?
I know.
What happened? He created a monster.
He may have created a monster. Yeah. And he's like, well, no, maybe we just buy less over time. I'm like, no, we're not going to hit our goals then. And I'm kind of the one who's like, well, I set the goal, so we have to hit the goal. And then when it became very obvious that we couldn't hit the goal at the current trajectory, we had to pivot or fix the goal. And I'm like, you don't fix the goal. The goal is the goal.
Awesome. We've got Zach and Stephanie Betters.
Awesome.
Better Path Homes,
Yay.
Left Main. What else? You do social media too?
Just my stuff, my social media stuff.
Apartments, all sorts of stuff. You guys are probably like the definition of crushing it.
That's generous.
Happy
I'll
moments.
take it. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
seriously. I think a lot of people would aspire to be at your level of business with all the things you guys have going on. But before we get into the real estate stuff, who were you guys before you started investing?
So so we met in college actually. So I was going to school for pre-med. She was going to nursing school. We both worked on an ambulance and met on an ambulance one day. And my life has been forever changed.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I worked on an ambulance too.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah, upstate New York.
Super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so we met in college. We're getting ready to kind of do our medical school thing, and really investing just kind of started as a side gig. It was just something that I wanted to do as a retirement plan, essentially, and a college fund for our kids. And so who we were beforehand was just two fools in love.
Yeah, we met in undergrad, so we were really young, and we got married. I was 21, you were 23. We got married essentially right after we graduated college and had nothing, had no money. Like, we're renting, trying to figure out what to do. And this was in 2007. And so at that time, those like fix and flip shows were really big, and they were new. And so he's like, oh, we should flip a house. Like, you buy a foreclosed house, and then you sell it, you make a bunch of money.
It's easy.
We should do that, right?
That's all I knew.
Yeah, and he literally had a newspaper article. It was like, oh, look, there's one right down the road from here. And so we went to go see it, and it was like full of mold. It was ridiculous. And he's like, yeah, we're going to buy this. And I was like, this is not what I pictured, right? Like our first house together to be
Honeymoon
like,
house.
you know? Like carry me over the threshold into this
Moldy mess.
this moldy mess. But he was like, no, we got to do this. This is going to work. And I was like, oh gosh, okay. And so when we, as newlyweds, the very first place we lived together was this house.
Wow. This was in New York.
Yep.
In Binghamton, New York, Endicott to be exact.
So you guys fixed it up yourselves, or you hire people to do it? How'd you do it?
Yeah, so it's funny, you have different like terminology for it now, but it was just like a live-in flip. So
Yeah.
the old house hack thing that we did, it took almost 2 years to do it, but we had to fix it. It was in such bad shape, you had to fix some of the stuff just to even move in.
Right.
We took the mold out before we moved in.
Took care of the mold situation, a little bit of water situation, but then literally just, I still have the book to this day. It's a Black & Decker Home Depot book. How to do repairs.
He's like, we can figure this out, Steph. We got
I feel like
this.
YouTube was just coming out. We had no tools, no knowledge,
Yeah.
nothing,
Wow.
and just bought the book.
That's crazy.
We did basically everything except refinish the floors, I think.
That was even annoying
Add
because
a
I was
bathroom.
going to do it, but it's like we were still working full time. I was on call at the hospital, and had meant to do it. Long story short, ran into some issues with renting the machine, and I just had somebody finish off the varnish. But
But everything else we did, we had no doors in the house
Oh,
for
that was
like
fun.
a year.
Just scraping by.
It's a great newlywed experience.
well, it's funny, like the decisions that you make going back, right? It was like, oh, do we refinish the doors or put new doors on? So I'd taken them off and I'd refinished them, but by the time you
They're like
fix
the
and flip a
hollow,
whole house,
crappy
it's like,
doors.
well, now the doors are going to look like crap.
Yeah.
They're refinished doors, but they look like crap.
Yeah.
So we just didn't have doors for a while.
So you bought that in 2007.
Yeah.
Was that at the top, or was that as things were coming back down?
It was an interesting timing. So for the market that we were in there, it was fine. The actual market was on its way up, and then we didn't time anything. I think God timed everything. We sold like at the top.
Oh, wow.
So I went
2
to
weeks later, IBM was the big major employer in Binghamton, and 2 weeks after we sold it, they laid everybody off.
Oh my gosh.
Well, not everybody, but like a significant
Yeah.
labor force, and we just sold just in time.
we'd already moved to Stony Brook. I was starting my master's program. She was pregnant, ready for our first kid, and like
Also a master's program.
also in a master's
Forget
program,
that.
working full time. Wow. So it was a little bit chaotic.
It was really
But
crazy.
sold it right at the peak, and
Yeah.
and took that, kind of helped us get through schooling for our master's programs.
Very cool.
With the idea that we'd get back to real estate once we got our careers situated.
Yeah. Were you guys always entrepreneurial, or was that just your first crack at it?
First crack for me.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, I've always been a little bit of a risk taker, but and willing to just kind of put myself out there, like going away to school when everyone else stayed home and stuff like that. And I would say the same for you, but
Yeah,
but
but
not
I mean, I've
business
never done
ownership.
any business.
Yeah.
That really, I never even imagined myself being part of that.
Were you apprehensive about buying?
Extremely. I was definitely
It
the
took
weight.
a long
Like,
time to get her.
I held him back for sure.
Well, and I tortured her with the first one, right? I mean, like literally mold, sheetrock dust everywhere, no doors in the bathroom for a year and a
get
half.
any worse.
She didn't have it.
I was like,
What is this? Pregnant towards the end of it. Like it was a rough go.
Oh gosh.
but I mean, I saw it. I saw that it could work. But what I was, I don't know. I was scared. I'd never thought that we would start a business, and I just really was like, oh, I want to get married, have babies. I want to work in the hospital. I want to take care of people. That's kind of what I pictured. And then he introduced this completely new concept, like, oh, we can make money in real estate. I was like, well, I don't know what that's like. What is that? And I'm a little, especially at the time then, I still am now, but I'm a saver. I'm safe. I want to get a good job. And and so it was a little bit jarring. But once we did it the first time, I got it. But then I was like, okay, well, how can we do this in a way that we can afford it so we don't have to live in it anymore? Because how can we do this with young children and sheetrock dust everywhere, So that was the next kind of hurdle. After we graduated grad school, I said, we got to do it again, and I was like, okay, I'll do it again, but we can't live in it. So how is that going to work? Where are we going to live? And then how are we going to afford a second house? And where are we going to do this? And, we're looking at different markets and stuff. And we had talked about Charlotte and North Carolina in general because both of our parents were willing to move here. Mm-hmm. And when we graduated grad school, everybody was kind of everywhere. My parents and his mom, and it was in Maryland, and maybe going back to New York, and maybe both of them would move to somewhere warm. And our siblings, my dad, everyone was everywhere. So we were trying to decide where we could do this again and where to even start. And Charlotte was it.
So you moved to Charlotte specifically for real estate.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
I had a couple criteria. We wanted to stay East Coast, get warmer, international airport, and good medicine, like good medical opportunities as PAs, and a thriving like real estate market.
Were there any other options, or was it just
we
like
really
this
kind
is
of
an
localed it
obvious
down
choice?
to here in like Raleigh.
Yeah, but we looked at Texas and Austin, where your sister was. We looked at Florida. We looked at like Jacksonville specifically. But the ones that looked the best were the Raleigh market and the Charlotte market. And when we looked at what happened in 2007, which again, I'm going like worst case scenario, it's all gonna blow up again. In 2007, 2008, the Raleigh market was pretty stable. Mm-hmm. A couple percentage points dip, but nothing drastic. And then the Charlotte market was growing kind of in a similar trend as Raleigh. So when we looked at it, we're like, this seems kind of like you have a little bit of a playbook, because Charlotte was following Raleigh, and same thing with Jacksonville, kind of growth-wise. Good jobs here. So we're like, oh, screw it, let's go.
So you moved halfway down the East Coast. Mm-hmm. When was that? What year was that?
2011.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there was a gap between the time you sold that first house before you guys didn't do anything.
Right, we were just in
So
school.
it was like 7 to 9 was that first one, and then our master's programs took us from like 9 to 11, around 12. Popped out a couple kids. Make it sound easier than it is.
A couple?
That's all it is. Just like, yeah.
And in that time period, and was really just kind of waiting for job stability and the kids to get a little bit older to say like, all right, when are we going to be ready to take a jump?
Were you chomping at the bit to start
bit.
your next one?
Yeah. I mean, I have a hard time sitting still.
Yeah.
As we already talked about. I got to be doing something. What can I be doing? What's going on next?
Fidget spinners or something.
Yeah, so I'm like right? I'm like, okay, we're here. This is the right market, but how are we going to figure this out? And now we both had just gotten jobs. So we spent all this time, all this money to go get educated. Now we have combined $200,000 in debt for school, right? And we finally get the jobs. I'm like, okay, we got the jobs we wanted. Like, we have to catch up somehow. We have got to get settled. Now we have 3 young children. Can we get back into this? And I kept like, that was my rumination. Like, how are we going to do this without risking it all? What do we have to lose? And how do we do this safely and like still raise our family in a safe place?
Yeah.
That's a great thing about starting early is you don't have a ton to lose.
It's true.
It's like
It's true.
starting out with 10
Just a
grand
lot
in the
of
bank.
debt.
What do you got to lose?
Yeah,
It'll be all right.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah.
So we talked a lot about it, and we decided to buy a house in Steel Creek in Berwick. Mm-hmm. And this was what, 2011. Yeah, yeah. Because we rented for like 6 months and while we were waiting for the house to be built. And we're like, okay, if we're right about the market, this will all appreciate. In a couple years, maybe we can take out a home equity line of credit.
Yeah.
And that'll be our bet, Like we can live it'll be like a good entry-level house. It's a safe location, right? We're going to bet on appreciation. We're not in a rush to do a deal.
Mold.
No mold. So that's what we did. We bought that house. And for 2 years, X listened to the podcast, and he's trying to pump me up. I'm like, ah, but and then 2 years passes, and I was like, okay, let's see what we can get for a loan, and reached out to whoever our bank was at the time, Wells Fargo, got a $20,000 home equity line of credit.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, here we go. It happened. What we thought would happen happened. Mm-hmm. So that's got to be okay then, right? It's like we made a bet, it worked out. Maybe we just go do it.
That's awesome. What'd you do with the 20K?
We made about 100 offers before anything got accepted. So that was kind of funny. You make one offer, you're terrified, and it doesn't get accepted. Then you kind of get burnt out, right? None of the offers get accepted. So we made literally 100 offers, and then 2 got accepted at the same time. One for a rental, and then one for a flip.
How are you guys making the offers at that time?
MLS.
So a combination of back in those, remember Craigslist?
Yeah.
So literally the 2 first deals that we had from there, one was a Craigslist like HUD home, and the other one I think was a foreclosure that we put the offer in through an agent.
On MLS, yeah.
And so it was really interesting because we were all excited that we just got this HUD home accepted, and the agent called us back. She's like, hey, great news. I'm like, what? She's like, that offer got accepted. What offer? We haven't talked about an offer in a really long time, and so she had kept making the offer on this MLS house for a month and a half.
Oh, wow.
And so we went from not having a deal to being like, we have 2 deals we got to figure out this week.
Yeah.
What are we going to do?
Yeah, and the HUD home you couldn't get traditional financing on. It was a disaster. So one
last minute disaster.
Yeah, the other one in Steel Creek was just a great rental, like cosmetic kind of hotel type or it wasn't a hotel. Cosmetic flip kind of situation. I think it needed like $10,000 worth of work, and then we could get a conventional loan out. So essentially, all $20,000 was taken up, right, from the down payment and then the renovation stuff, which we did all that too, except for maybe carpet.
I got pictures of the kids there.
Yeah,
ripping up the floor.
Really?
Yeah.
How old were your kids at that time?
Oh, do the math.
Claire was what, a year?
She had to be because she's not in the picture. So the other 2.
Yeah. So they're all 2.5 years apart. Yeah.
6 and 4. Mm-hmm. Put them to work early.
That's right.
Teach them.
Yeah.
Took them with. Yeah.
So you had enough for the one house.
Yeah.
But the HUD home that you said it was a disaster.
Yeah, and it was just kind of like a last minute disaster where you think you're on the same page with always be cautious as you're dealing with a new lender, right? So it's like we're good, and then a couple days before closing we're not good because there's no floor in the house.
Oh.
Yeah.
We talked about this 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, it was a hard money lender. I don't remember which one it was.
I remember,
but they pulled. They're like, okay, well, you can get a hard money loan, but then last minute, no, you can't. So we had to find private money then.
I mean,
that's a good story.
I think it's a good story. The idea of like resilience and grit.
Mm-hmm.
Like we didn't know what we're doing. We're figuring this out as you go, and like just be determined not to fail. And you never know what connections you're going to make that are actually going to be so impactful. I think for that one. It was a guy that I talked to at my job who was doing real estate investing. I'm like, I'm listening to these podcasts. How are you doing it? He's using a private money lender. Introduced me to him. That guy didn't do the deal, but somebody he knew did.
Wow. And it was funny, all came together. The story of how you met him, though, because he worked urgent care, and you were stitching up his head.
No,
or something.
I was doing a physical. It was just a physical.
I
wish it was more aggressive, but I was just doing a physical on the guy.
You had the story from that you were like suturing someone up, talking to them about just BSing, and they're like, oh yeah, real estate.
Yeah, and so just got to talk to them about what are you doing? How are you doing it?
How did that conversation go? With you being like, remember me? I gave you the physical.
Well, actually, so it wasn't even him. So
I saw your butt cheeks.
Knowing what we know today, right? Like some of the hardest connections to give up are probably your contractor connections and your money connections.
Yeah.
So thinking back to that moment and telling him what I wanted to do, and he's like, "Oh, I do it with this lender," and he's like, "Yeah, I'll give you his name." So he like literally gave me his name, his number, and then I reached out to him. It's just a crazy story all the way around because it actually wound up canceling the deal. I called the agent that we were working with. It's like, listen, my money just fell through. I'm toast. Like, we can't do it. And then he called me back after shooting me down the first time. He called me back that night and was like, hey, I found somebody else that'll do the deal for you.
Oh, wow.
So I had to call the agent back up. I'm like, hey, did you cancel the deal officially yet? Because I think we can come through.
That's awesome.
And so came through. You never know. Connections.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Sometimes stuff like that happens for a reason. It
I know.
forces you outside your comfort zone. And so, I mean, what was going through your head at that time? Like you wanted to cancel, and then it like how do you reconcile all that?
Right? Like I didn't want
it's
to cancel
awful.
at all. You know,
It took so
we were
long
so-
to get that win,
right?
even to get a contract accepted, you know. So just like the whole thing roller coaster, you know.
and it's the element of seeing what's possible, right? So we have the benefit now of being part of groups like CG, et cetera, where you can see firsthand and have close relationships with people that are getting it done. But like back then, we didn't have those. So just being able to see that opportunity open up in front of us,
Yeah.
and then that's all we needed, right? Like that was a family that wanted to invest, and they were our investor, our sole investor for a period of time until we outgrew, what they had for funding. But then you knew it was possible,
Yeah.
and you knew the steps to do it.
Yeah.
First one's always the hardest.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So from that point, things have obviously grown exponentially. Just give us a brief summary of like where you guys are at today and how your business has grown over the years.
Yeah. So that very first year, I think we ended up doing like 11 or 12 deals, which was crazy. Flips and we started wholesaling towards the end of the year when all of our crews got backed up and all the contractors, all that stuff started breaking. We wholesaled our first deal and thought, hey, that was pretty good. We were marketing. And so kind of an aha moment of, hey, this can be a business model too. It's not just about building our own portfolio, but we can actually have transactional money here too.
Yeah.
And then take that transactional money and buy rentals. Because what the specific problem we ran into is, it was hard to save up money to buy a rental.
Yeah.
Right. And like we're working full time and neither one of us at the time wanted to leave medicine. It took a long time to save up $20,000 when you're paying off all your normal bills and your school loans and all that. So it's like, okay, if we can flip houses or we can wholesale, then we can raise more money to buy more rentals. But there came this kind of crossroads of, are we going to do that? Are we going to build a whole company that does that? Or are we going to slow down and buy less houses over time and just do it kind of as on the side? And so there was this big moment. I remember like us sitting in the house together, like, okay, what's our plan going to be? And we didn't agree. I was like, we can do it. We can do this. Like we can build a business. This is great. We can have a team.
Wait, but I thought you were the one.
Right?
who was all
I know.
gung-ho.
What happened? Created a monster.
He may have created a monster. Yeah. And he's like, well, no, maybe we just buy less over time. I'm like, no, we're not going to hit our goals then. And I'm kind of the one who's like, well, I set the goal, so we have to hit the goal. And then when it became like very obvious that we couldn't hit the goal at the current trajectory, we had to pivot or fix the goal. And I'm like, you don't fix the goal. The goal is the goal,
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, we're going to build a business that's going to do this. And I totally fell in love with business operations and growing teams and process and it was awesome. So we had that crossroads and we went all into building the business. And looking back, we took about a 5-year detour of buying rentals, which was super scary. What are we doing this all for? Oh my gosh, like you're scaling, you're not making any money, but you're scaling the team and like you see it happening, you see the possibility, but then you're not creating enough cash to buy the rentals. And do you ride it out or do you keep going or do you pivot again? So it's a really, really challenging 5 years.
Why did you make that decision?
To keep going?
Well, to stop buying rentals.
Because we couldn't scale the business and take away the cash from the business to buy rentals because the business when scaling needed that cash. So we would just like obliterate it if we took, $50K out.
Yeah.
Like we needed that for marketing, you needed that for hiring. And
Was that a conscious decision that you guys made, or was that just by circumstance? It was like, hey, we can't buy any rentals right now, and it just went on for 5 years? Or was it like, we're going to do whatever we can to grow, and then when we get to that point where we have money, like how did you guys make that decision?
it was mostly conscious. Disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, I think the conscious decision was the idea of the change of business strategy, right? It's like the first business plan was 15 houses. We have 5 people in our family. I said 3 houses per family member. By the time the kids go to school or get married or we retire, like you'll have some sort of equity, you'll have, mortgage buy down, we should be good. And so, as you changed it to the idea of like, all right, let's scale a business so that the business is running. I remember, it's like the guru conversation of if you have a machine, you put $1 in, puts 3 out, what are you going to do? You're just going to keep pumping more money into that machine. Well, building that machine took took more time. So, had the machine snapped and started pumping out $5 for every dollar you put in, we probably would have bought more rentals sooner. So it was more the idea of like, all right, we're going to make this, we're going to build this business, and that'll be the priority. And then with what's left over, change your lifestyle or whatever, then you'll start to buy rentals again.
Yeah.
I don't know, but looking back on that, I don't know that is realistic. I think it takes time to build the machine. And the concept of, you just set it and forget it and it just pumps out cash is really it's really not possible. It takes a lot.
I'm waiting for that moment.
Yeah, right. But and I think it's really hard to survive that 5 years. And now, oh my gosh, we're 10 plus years in. I've seen a lot of companies go through that same exact exponential curve where you have to sacrifice the profit, like the net profit for the business health.
Yeah.
And I mean, it takes nothing to lose, right? Like one bad quarter puts you out of business.
Oh, for sure.
It's breakneck. It's scary. It felt awful doing that. But, now on the other side, it worked out. So here we are now. We've, in 2020, before the pandemic, we sat down and we had all these different, before the pandemic, 2018, we decided to merge with a third partner, Jeff Johnson, who was primarily doing new build construction here in Charlotte. And we were at that time primarily flipping and wholesaling. And, it was challenging. We were both still working full time. No, you had just left. He left medicine in 2017-ish.
Left full time. I still work.
Yeah, you were working. Yeah, he was still working part time.
Still showing up,
picking shifts, but he left full time.
Yeah.
And then was essentially the business was supporting us. I was still working full time. Business was busy, and it was like it's a lot. CEO, COO, like the whole dynamic kind of eroding into personal life, and everything was business. Everywhere we always talked about it. It was really challenging to have to turn off the brain. And he's an idea guy, and he's relentless, and he's got great ideas, and I want to implement them, and I just couldn't escape. So I was like, well, maybe this is a cool opportunity with Jeff, because this is another kind of leg to the stool, if you will, of how we can make money in real estate. It's a third partner, so maybe it'd be good to have somebody else at the table except just us, and maybe that would be good for all of us.
Yeah.
And Jeff is great. We have all the same core values and a lot in common, and he was interested in the flipping and wholesaling side, and we were interested in the new build side. So we merged in 2018. And that was
good timing.
That was great.
Yeah, right.
I know. And then, so then we were doing all the things. We were wholesaling, flipping, buying. We had started buying more rentals then, and new build construction, and the business got really, really complicated. Spending a ton of money on marketing, all the things. Lots of problems. And systems breaking and operations, tended to be the thing that happened first. That was what I was charged to fix. So that's where Left Main and software solutions and all that kind of came to play. And in January 2020, we all sat down at our annual planning meeting, and we're like, okay, we're doing too much. Something needs to happen. We're doing all these different exit strategies. It's getting too complicated. The system is too big, And we decided then to stop flipping. And that was kind of an identity crisis. That was really difficult to look at all the different verticals and have to axe flipping, which was a big part of our heart at that point. But it worked out because we were holding a lot less when COVID first hit.
Yeah.
And that was a cool meeting too, because as the business was growing and becoming more and more successful, I also personally had this decision to make. Am I going to leave the hospital? Am I going to leave medicine too? And I wasn't ready. So, but then the business required a lot. So we hired, we had a project manager, his name is Matt, who was doing an amazing job with our new builds and our project management side. And we promoted him to take my role as COO. So that was also a huge win for me to be able to step out from the day-to-day a little bit more. And Matt was a great fit for that. So January 2020 was a big month.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff happened. Yeah. You look like you wanted to say something.
No, good.
No.
Yeah. Nailed it.
So obviously lots of ups and downs from the beginning to with the Moldy home to, the season where you guys were not doing what you wanted to do initially, the 5 years that you spent pouring back into the business. And then in 2020, having this we're doing too much. There's ups and downs, right? What is some disciplines that you guys have that keep you steady and motivated to keep pushing forward to have that grit and determination?
I mean, I think for me as a visionary, I think it was an important lesson to learn is the idea of less is more sometimes, because you just want to keep doing more. And so learning the lessons as you get hit time and time again of like trying to do new things, spreading your team too thin, spreading yourself too thin, and the complexities that adds, and seeing those hardships. So now like it would be hard if she's my implementer and I'm like, here's my great idea, and then she immediately starts implementing it versus now putting some beacon of time in between there. So whether it's like not meeting with the COO till the next day, or a lot of times I'm just like writing my idea down, like, let's see if I still think this is a great idea tomorrow before I disrupt the whole world here.
Yeah.
Let me see if this is still a good idea tomorrow.
Yeah.
So that's so that discipline has been probably the most important one for me to learn, so that I can remain steadfast and like going after pursuing what's actually working.
Yeah.
I think like she mentioned the idea of fixing and flipping, like fell in love with the TV shows, right? Like looking back on all the projects we did, I loved them. They weren't always the most profitable, right? Like I think I would look at other people's projects and be like, it's not as pretty as this one. It's like, oh, but I'll bet you they were more profitable than this beautiful project I just put out that made no money, So, separating that emotional aspect and staying steadfast on the business of what's actually going to bring you profit, which is the important thing. Like, you know what I mean? It was a really hard thing for me to like be like, profit is really important, right? Because I don't want to care about money. I want to take care of people. I have a medical background. That's all I want to do is take care of you. Mm-hmm. What can I do to take care of you, somebody else? But then you learn, like, if you don't have money, I don't have resources to take care of anybody.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah. I mean, I'd echo that too. I think focus is really, really important, and understanding what you really love too. Like that's helped me stay really disciplined because I know what I love. Like I know what I'm good at, and I want to do what I'm good at and what I love, and be centered in like passion and purpose and impact. And when I'm centered in that, like you cannot stop me. I'm going to get it done, So
on that note, Left Main.
Yeah.
Is that both of your guys' baby, or is that your baby?
It's my baby.
That's her baby.
But a fourth child.
People come to me about like the technical stuff. They're like, oh, hey, Left Main. I'm like, yeah. Let me just guide you over here. You don't want to talk to me about tech.
Yeah. We've used Left Main for years now.
Yeah.
We have a love-hate relationship with it, but it's one of the most helpful tools in our business right now.
Yeah.
It keeps us.
It's like the visibility, like, dang it, I can't dispute that.
Exactly, right? So just talk us through your journey with that and how that's, played into your guys' story.
Yeah, I mean, so in 2018, 2019, that was this big pain moment as the operator in this complex business, lots of moving parts, lots of money going out the door with marketing. At that time, I think we were spending like $100,000 a month on marketing.
Wow.
And I couldn't tell you what was working. I was like, oh, the phone's ringing, but I don't know what's working.
Yeah.
And that felt like chaos. And I actually felt really desperate. So I was like, this has to work. This business has to work because we're all in. Like we bet everything on it, right? Now the business is big enough and we have enough projects out there and loans and all this that like I can just go pick up a shift to the hospital, right? Like it's got to work or this is gonna blow up. And so I felt so out of control with decision making, and we were using Podio and we were using 5 or 6 different other things too, and everything was super fragmented. And I just wanted to answer like a simple question, like what was our ROI on this marketing, or did our team members do what they needed to do? Or like, where's the bottleneck in this process? And I couldn't answer it. And I'm used to medicine where like, okay, you run labs on somebody and you make a decision based on fact and like data points. And I felt like that was lacking. And I honestly just like freaked out one day. And it's like, what's the number one system in the world? I'm just going to go buy it. What is it? And it was Salesforce, right? Like indisputably still the number one CRM in the world. And I went through that whole sales process and it was way out of reach. This giant enterprise solution, literally $1 million minimum.
That's outrageous. Yeah.
Unbelievable. And I was so frustrated because I was like, what? There's tools for like, small time, right? Like you're doing a handful of deals and you can use Asana and CallRail or whatever the heck we were using, Podio at the time. And you can cobble these things together. But once you get out of this, like maybe 10, 20 deals, there's a huge gap of tools. And then there's enterprise solutions. So we were in this like donut hole. Like why is there not something for us, And we couldn't use what was available at the time because it was just too fragmented. So when I went to Salesforce, I was like, it's not attainable for me to have an enterprise solution. So what the heck do I do? And I was on the call with these guys there and they quoted this crazy price to build it all out. I was like, how hard could this be? I'm just going to build it myself. And one of the people on this call thought that was real cute. And I was like, well, now I'm mad. So now I'm really going to go do it. So I was like, I feel like I have to figure this out because there's no other option. It really felt like it was do or die. So I bought the Salesforce platform. I taught myself how to code on it and build all the stuff that we needed for our company. It took me like 100 hours straight to figure it out and do it. And we launched, and it was like 3-4 months later of the first iteration. We launched it for our company, and it was immediate like, yes, this is it. This is going to work. This is so good. And that was it. That was the whole plan. It was like just to stabilize our own company. And, it was amazing. And a couple months after we had launched, Salesforce reached out and was like, yeah, well, did you give up? How'd it go? I was like, no, I'm done. I built it. Thanks. And the account executive there, again, one of those moments like, why did you help me? She said, well, can I see it? I'm like, all right, fine, I'll show you, and then you can take me out of your drip sequence, So I showed her, and she's like, can I come visit you? Can I come meet you?
Oh, wow.
I was like, you want to come to see me? I'm like, what? So she's like, yeah. So she came to our office, and she's like, I think you have something here. Everyone I talked to on the real estate side who comes through Salesforce's doors, they all freak out. It's all unattainable. They all act just like you acted, which was kind of ugly to me. Like, I freaked out. And she's like, have you ever thought about partnering? I don't even know what that means. What is that? And so she introduced me to their partner team and super naively negotiated a contract with them. I was like, this is what I want. I want to be able to do all these things. I want the full sales cloud. I want to be able to deliver it. I want to control the sales process. Like, if you want me to do this, this is what it's got to be. And they were like, okay. And sign this deal. And now I know we're to be able to do what we do and deliver on the sales cloud. There's only 2 other people in the world who have the deal that we have. And I didn't know that at the time, but it's pretty epic where we can essentially sell the entire sales cloud plus our solution at like way below Salesforce retail.
Yeah.
It's like a third of the cost, basically. Yeah. And anyway, so we got this sweet deal, and then I started talking about it with some of my friends, and like in different masterminds, and like, well, what are you using? What's your system? And I showed them, like, oh, can we use that? I was like, yeah, I guess you can, So then they started buying it, and we had this kind of word of mouth thing that happened, and it took off, and now here we are 5 years later. That's now my full-time gig. And the timing was really amazing because this was January 2020 when they signed the contract. And Matt had just taken my spot as COO. I was still working full-time at the hospital. We had this maybe Salesforce thing happening. And I was like, hey, everything happens for a reason. Maybe I need to concentrate on this. Like, I really love this. I totally fell in love with it. Systems is my thing. KPIs, the whole thing. So I was like, all right, let's see where this goes. And it was cool because we had just worked together really closely for 8 years or so at that time. And I was like, maybe this will be a better dynamic too, because we don't have to work like daily together. We can be each other's like board of directors, And although we work really awesome together, we're a really great team, it just kind of blurs all these boundaries. It's like probably like anybody else where all you do is you go out and talk about the kids. Like all you do is go out and talk about business. So I was like, this will be really great. You can run Better Path. I'll see what happens with this Left Main thing and we'll, kind of go from there. And Left Main took off, and now we have, I don't know, almost 4,000 customers or something like that. Wow. And a tech team that's way smarter than me. It's way past the initial, I learned tons of lessons along the way, and the product is now, a billion times better than it was when we first launched. But I've now completely fallen in love with that,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So cool. So you identified a need, and then you were bullish enough to, I'll do this. I'll figure this out.
Yeah.
I love it. It seems like that's a common theme throughout your guys' story. It's you hit a roadblock and you just push through.
Yeah.
It sounds like January of 2020 was like a big month.
Yeah.
So then 3 months later, the whole world shuts down.
Right? I know. It's like 2020, the year 20 sounds like such a great year.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was my word that year? It was like do or move. That was it. My word was move. I had all these plans. I had already booked like a Bahamas mission trip. We were going to do all this stuff that year.
Oh, it's so cool.
And then it all just burned up, blew up overnight.
Turned out good in the end. Yeah. It was just scary there for a few months, but the timing was good for all of it in the end. In retrospect, it was better than we thought it would be when March came along and the school shut down, and internet, like we had to get, everyone's Zooming from home. We're all working from home, all 3 kids. We had a kindergartner trying to Zoom, learn things.
I mean, it was cool for like 2 weeks because the whole world shut down and we're like, what do you do? This is like summer break all over again.
Yeah.
No responsibility. But
yeah, if you didn't have the responsibility of the business, I think it would have been like really exciting. but I was like, I think it was a lot of panic because I remember actually when they started to lift the restrictions, I'm like, wow, I don't know if I hate to say enjoyed the moment, but like made the most of the moments that you had, right? Like, I mean, you had your whole family where you couldn't go anywhere, right? I remember getting to the end and I'm like, I've been so focused on trying to adapt to new rules. Like, remember when I was like, can a contractor show up at a house? Like, can we continue to work?
Yeah.
Remember my transaction girl's like, can you write me a letter that allows me to be on the road? Like to look back at those moments, like, do you ever, like, I think we're going to tell our great grandkids these stories and they're going to think that you were like, you're senile. Like you weren't afraid to be on a road without a piece of paper, but like that was a legit thing for a period of time.
Yeah.
Remember we couldn't show a house? The agent couldn't show the house, but the owner could show the house.
That's the
so
thing
like,
about,
I'll go FaceTime on this house. What do we need to do?
Yeah.
That's the thing about business. I think it's about, like I said, that grit and the adaptability. So I think, and your strengths can be weaknesses sometimes, right? So I have to be careful about I have to be focused and not be all over the map. But the fact that like most of our team is fairly well adaptable to like, the world changed. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
Like we can't do things the way you did them last week.
Yeah,
what
absolutely. How would you guys classify your level of risk tolerance?
It's interesting because I think it waxes and wanes a little bit. I think, like I said in the beginning, you had nothing. Like I was a lot of just ignorance. Like from the first house that we bought, like I don't know, you buy a foreclosed house and you fix it up. That's literally all I knew, and I was ready to jump. And kind of similar in the beginning. And then, as you start to have things to, as you start to have more to lose, then you have to start kind of balancing that out. So I think there's a level of balance that you want to have there of for your family and what you need. But so now I think it's less about what I'm willing to risk and more about the time is a bigger risk for me in terms of like what am I willing to risk to give up for brain space and attention. I think they say time is really important, but really attention is even more important. So that's my biggest risk right now is like if I'm going to say yes to something, what's it going to do to my time and attention for the next 8 years? I've got 8 years like my counting clock of what we have left for like time for with our baby before she goes off.
Yeah.
And it's like that's what I'm probably less willing to risk than money and whatever else. The rest of it's easy. Throw it in a some sort of calculated risk of like what do I have to lose?
Yeah.
I would say I'm probably moderately risk tolerant, but I agree with time. I think I look at opportunity differently now. In the beginning, you don't see it at all. You don't see the opportunity. You're like, I'm going to get a great job, and that's my goal, right?
Yeah.
And this is at least my story. And then you start seeing opportunity, and then you see opportunity everywhere. Like, there's lots of different ways to do this. We're going to do all the things, and especially in the beginning, I thought, well, we need to be really diverse because then we're hedged, right? If one thing doesn't work out, the other thing works out. This dispo method is better than that dispo method. If we do them all, then we can do anything with this deal, right? Yeah. We can help every homeowner. And then I think that opportunity you can choke on it. And you're like, I'm doing too much. Now I have to focus on the thing that actually results in what I want it to result in, right? And what can I actually control? What do I like to do? And I think, you look at, oh, this is $1 million idea. And you're like, so what? Because it's going to cost me all that, Now I'm only going to chase the opportunity that I can actually fully capture.
Yeah.
And I have the time to do it. I have the resources to do it. I have the passion to do it. And so I think it's a kind of a journey of saying yes to everything and then saying no to everything.
Yeah.
It's like a transition to like, no, only this. This is what I really want to do. And then when you have that focus, you just literally don't stop. You can figure anything out. Like I think if you just keep going, you can be successful.
Yeah.
And so it's funny how that ties to risk and opportunity all in one,
What are some of the things you guys said no to? I mean, flipping was the big one. Was there anything else that you guys just said, we can't do this anymore? Or other big ideas that you write down that just don't make the cut?
I considered starting a button factory.
What?
Yeah. Or like a zipper, like XYZ zippers. Every single one is XYZ. Why? Who's going to go disrupt the zipper industry?
Compete
like,
with XYZ.
Who's competing with the zippers? I was like, no, wait a minute, no. I'm going to stop doing that.
I mean, I think for me, it's more of like the real estate horizontals, kind of like should I do self-storage? Should I be doing multifamily? And so you've seen that we've done like some syndications and things, but it's not me necessarily. I tell people it's not me going into multifamily. Like I'm not a multifamily expert, but I know enough about real estate to be able to analyze a deal and be like, am I willing to put money in through there and have it not take up my time?
Yeah.
And that could be across any of the ones. But, you go to a meetup and you're like, you're doing what with self-storage? And I can get that, like, you know what I mean? And I start to want to go down there and just say no to those. So there's a lot of that. And then the idea of like, I want to help people. Like I would like to be able to do, I think about more of like mastermind and coaching and those sort of things. But like at this point, like it's not a no for me. It's a no right now. It's a pause right now. Have the machine dialed in a little bit better. Have some of the time with the kids dialed in a little bit better. And down the road.
Yeah. 8 years.
Yeah. Coming 8 years.
Yeah, I think not now is powerful too. You don't have to do it all right now.
Yeah. What's been your guys' worst deal?
Kendrick? No. What, Behringer? We got a couple. We have a couple ribbons, never again, in our office.
It's funny, actually. A lot of times people would say like the best deal is the one that they walked away from. I have one that I still hate walking away from. We had 86 acres of land in Clover for like $35,000 that I never closed.
What?
It's embarrassing. I think
That was
we should
bad.
cut the clip.
No, that was bad.
So like I feel bad of walking away from some of those. We've had some where it's like, you buy a lot of these houses without inspections and those sort of things. And like the hidden damage, the one she was talking about with Behringer was like the decisions you make, right? We overflipped a lot of different things. We probably should have just painted the walls and called it a day. Decided like, I don't like the paneling. So let's take the paneling off and then we'll just finish the wall underneath. And as we did that, like there was an undisclosed fire.
Oh no.
Yeah, so we
like
take off the paneling and the studs are all charred. Like
every
they're little
stud was
toothpicks.
charred.
It's not supposed to be out like that.
Right? And they're like, what?
trying
And
to
you're like
figure out
taking
where did
down
this
more and
happen?
more, and it's the whole freaking house. The entire house,
No
every
way.
stud. And also in the attic there was char, just a little bit charred in the attic. We totally could have caught it on inspection had we had looked close enough, but all the internal studs were charred. So like there was definitely a huge fire in this house. There's some sort of fraud.
How's that not reported?
Yeah, the guy that we bought it from off market is like, no, we never had a fire. Like, how do you not have a fire? What are you talking about? This whole thing is true. Oh no, I bought it from a bank. So then we go and like we call the fire department. I was like, there must have been a 911 call. And 911 calls working on the ambulance we know is public. So I called the fire department. I was like, I need to know every 911 call that happened at this address. Was there ever a fire? And their records went back to 1990, I think. All their digital records, and there was no fire from 1990. What? So we had found that this deal, basically the guy bought it from the bank, a bank foreclosure, and then that banker, the period of time that they owned it or foreclosed on it, that's when the fire was, and the bank covered it up.
What?
And sold it at auction, which means there's no warranties for anybody. It's all as is. And this guy bought it, and the only reason he didn't get caught with it because he never did any renovations. He just put a tenant in there and painted it, and everything was fine. It was just us here trying to like, let's make this beautiful. But I'm glad we did, because who knows? We probably would have gotten sued or something later, but we lost, I don't know, 6 figures on that house. We could have torn it down and built a new one way easier. But it was like this, if you give a mouse a cookie, like, and then what? And then what? And then you found it, and now you got to do something about it.
Way too deep into it to back out.
And it took like a year and a half, and by the time the whole thing was said and done, and it was awful. That was probably one of the most gut-wrenching ones.
Good grief.
Yeah.
Okay. Best deal. Most favorite.
I think my favorite ones was that trailer we did. That was one of my favorite ones.
Yeah, I think of what was the deal that you did, and she did the walkthrough, and we have the video. It's like Fenwick.
Oh, Fenwick, yeah.
So like
Myers Park.
Yeah.
I'm not Myers Park, Madison Park.
Yeah. So, I mean, I like that one just with the idea of like, there's family dynamic involved in there. It was like a family house, and we bought it, and talking about kind of like over renovating things and making a change and an impact. And then like the moment of like walking her back through like her family home and seeing her reaction. We
brought the previous owner in, and they loved it.
Oh, it's so cool.
And like to see that type of reaction and response and like joy on somebody else, like, I don't know. Those are wins for me.
Yeah, that was cool. I was going to say this trailer, we got this lead for a trailer in a park So they were renting the lot and the trailer, all the drama. And I went right after the hospital. So I had just left the hospital a few years ago. So I was, got the call, like it's all crazy. Left the hospital, met the guy out there at the trailer, bought the trailer for $8,000 and continued the lot rent, which was wild. It was like $500 for lot rent. We put a tenant in there that was paying $1,250 a month.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, yes, this is the best deal ever. And that was just really exciting, just from how we got under contract and then the tenant, and we owned it for, 5 years, and then we sold it for 30,000 after that.
Oh my gosh.
It was great.
Those are great.
I know.
I think it was like on a Saturday. He's like, they're going to come take my home on Monday. So
because you're behind on lot rent. That's right.
And so somehow I'm like, I don't know if we can do this or not, but let's figure it out. Another one of those. I think that's the theme of our lives. Like, I don't know. We will figure that out.
Yeah.
I don't know how we're going to close it on Monday, but we'll figure it out.
We did. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love mobile homes.
I know. It's real estate.
Welcome to Wheel Estate.
I love that your response is not a monetary thing, that it's more impact, and it's the way that you made somebody feel about the house.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely the deals that we had fun with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At a certain point, you make money. There's a certain value of it that gets lost. Money comes in, money comes out. But to be able to have impact in the community, I think that's really, really special.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like reverse for me. I almost had to learn the importance of money, right? It was like, I don't think I talked about money to the company for the first 2 years. And then things get really tight and you're like, okay, I love doing good in the world, but we got to make some money to do good in the world. And so that kind of came full circle, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of doing good, I know that you do a lot of medical mission stuff.
Yeah.
Are you still doing that?
Yeah, we do that together. It's been awesome. Let's see. Last year we didn't do one. Did we?
Honduras.
Yeah, we usually go in the summertime to Honduras, to this orphanage that we support, and we do a medical clinic there. But we couldn't go last year because my mom passed away. So we were here with her and a lot of family stuff. But we still supported them and sent our buddies out there and some cash. But we'll probably go back this coming year. We'll see. But you have one too.
Yeah, and so I mean, it's interesting because a lot of those, they have similar needs, right? They need medical, they need money, and they need housing. Mm-hmm. So it really kind of ties in all of what we're able to do. If we can have an abundance mindset and mentality, and be a conduit for people, we can go out and help with housing. We can go out and help with medicine. We're going to Hazard, Kentucky this summer. I think it's in June. And so we've done a lot of overseas mission trips, but then it's there's a lot of people that are right here that actually need, in our backyards that need help. And anytime that I can get involved in any of that, that's, I think, where my passion and impact kind of lies.
Yeah. Super cool.
That's what it comes down to. How can we help? Who can we help? And if we can have impact and tie it to that impact and passion, pretty much figure it out.
Yeah. That's great. So you guys don't get to this level of business without having some relationships. Mm-hmm. Who have been some of the most strategic relationships that you guys have had over the years that have helped you get to where you are today?
Oh, it's all relationships. I think with each other, number one. This guy is pretty inspiring. Definitely made me completely think outside the box and question everything that I think I was capable of what we were capable of, and what we can do together. That was incredibly impactful.
It's kind of funny because I was thinking the same thing as we were driving up here about her. Really, the idea of you asked, were you an entrepreneur before? And no, and I think really kind of, together, I think that's what we figured out. And I think she supported me in such a way of of course your crazy idea can work. What? I thought it was just a crazy idea to keep inside. What do you mean it would actually work and we should do it,
Yeah. The zipper one's a little crazy.
I know. That's okay.
So once in a while.
Say no to.
Someone's going to take it.
Someone's watching this and is going to be like, you know what?
Yeah,
I'm going to do it.
XYZ.
Right. And I think, thinking back, just I was doing the sports physical, or it wasn't sports physical, but doing a physical on that guy. And then he here's all the things that I've been hearing on a podcast, right? and then to see somebody in the flesh that's doing it, right? So that was the first start of that, and then getting involved.
No pun intended. See somebody in the flesh.
That's good. That's good. I didn't even
Sorry,
recognize that.
I had to put that in.
That was good. And so being able to see somebody do the things that you're hearing, I think is really important. You're bringing me all the way back, right? So before we even joined masterminds and those sort of things, we just went to local meetups, and shout out to Scott. Scott Patterson, Brian Olenke, some of those OGs that were at those meetings, and just, talking at the bar afterwards, and going through things and doing deals together. And like I said, just getting that first deal done is so huge, and seeing that it can be done.
Yeah, that exposure has, I think, changed everything. Just finding people that are trying to do crazy things like you, and what was a big adjustment was that wasn't our family, that wasn't our friends at the time, right? Now it's all intermixed, but we didn't know who to talk to. Everyone thought we were nuts, That the first house we bought, I remember my mom was like, "What are you doing? You can't do this." I'm like, "Oh, I got to do it. It's going to work."
Have you ever seen The Money Pit?
Right,
I've never seen that movie, but I've heard about it
Everyone.
15,000 times from the first house
but
we
then
ever
they
bought.
showed up. Remember when all your uncles came down and we painted or hung sheetrock or something? But
Learn some lessons, yeah.
I think, especially when you're trying to do something different, you've got to do everything different and find different and new people. But the RIAs were great, and then masterminds were amazing too. The first one we were in was Justin Williams, was 7-figure flipping. Now Bill Allen and Adam own it now. But I remember being there. I'm like, this guy's flipping 100 houses a year. Why is he lying? It's such a lie. It's such a fake thing. And now now we build 100 houses a year, right?
Yeah.
So it's getting exposure to what is actually possible, I think, is really important. And that was important for me too, as kind of an operations person. I need to be exposed to vision and ideas too, and that's why I think our relationship is so good, because he's like an idea factory, right? And always has ideas. I'm like, oh, that is a good idea. I can do that, or we can do that, and getting into new rooms with people talking about ideas that are just like you. And the same thing has been true on the Left Main side and building a SaaS company. Now I have real estate people. I don't have any software people. How do I do this right? Yeah. And probably one of the best things I did there was go out and find advisors. And there are people who are willing to be advisors and just nerd out with you. And then those people turned out into all these little breadcrumb relationships. Oh, you should know them. And then they know them. And it becomes this whole network of relationships and referrals. And it's amazing to look back and see how one relationship parlayed into so much other,
Absolutely.
other things.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say is you can't do it by yourself.
No.
And it's not as fun. I think it's really enjoyable. And I think I'm still breaking out, I think, from the COVID days of I feel like we all had to shore up at our homes so much. I have to remind myself, no, get out. It's so much more fun to go out and be with people and meet with people. It's cool that we've learned to do it from, it was funny, that year, 2020, I feel like we had worked so much in the office. My goal for that year was I'm going to work from home one day a week. It was a big deal. I remember being one day a week I'm working from home. I'm not coming into this office every day.
Our January affirmations.
And then I went a little overboard. But then it really became a thing where I'm listen, we went so long without me being in this building that now we can do it. You don't I can go to an event, I can go to a vacation, and the business can survive without me being here. So that was really good. But once in a while, I forget, no, it's good to be with people.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so looking back where you started, where you're at today, how has real estate changed your life?
I mean, it's I don't even recognize probably who I was or where I was, from there. The biggest thing for me, people ask me the difference between medicine and real estate, and I love medicine probably a little bit even more, but the idea of the freedom that I have in life now, I always tell the story, if I would ask for a day off, in the medical world, they would laugh at me. This is a huge story where our schedules were opposite. There was one day I needed off. I gave them a 3-month notice that I was not going to be there one day. And it was a week before. They're what are you going to do? I'm well, I'll tell you, I'm not going to be here. The same thing I told you 3 months ago. And literally, I've written up, it was almost a whole thing. But so the idea of the freedom that I have now, that my kid's got a field hockey thing for the weekend, I'm going, I'm gone. It doesn't mean I totally check out, right? I'm still available. But so the freedom that I have there of time and a little bit more money that I'm able to give in to other people, and it has just been amazing.
Yeah, time freedom is huge. a huge difference now. I think for me, I really underestimated myself. And looking back on even choosing a career, I remember being in high school and like, okay, I want to be a doctor, but only geniuses are doctors. And I'm not a genius. Like, I'm just a normal person. So I can't go to med school. All right, so I'll go be a nurse, right? And that sounds so terrible to say, like, on a podcast, because it's, but like, this is true. This is honestly what I thought, right?
Yeah.
I was like, I wasn't settling by any means, but I just totally just from the jump was like, I can't do that, you know. And then going to nursing school, and then I started, you know, working as a nurse in ICU, and I was like, dang it, I should have been a doctor. Delivery of care is extremely important, and there's a whole art and science to it. But I was so much more interested in like the why and the pathophysiology and the pharmacology, and I was like, I should have done that. Why did I doubt myself, right? And then here, you know, we were in the middle of this flip, and I wanted babies and a family. I'm like, I can't go to med school now. So then I went to NP school, nurse practitioner school, and it all ended up great. But the big lesson that I learned there was like, I just doubted myself in the beginning, and I don't want to do that anymore, right? So when I look back on the story of like what I can't do, so much of what I told myself was what I cannot do, instead of like, why not me? Of course I can do it. Of course I can figure it out. And I think the whole entrepreneurial journey has taught me that like everything you can figure out, and obstacles are the way, and like all you have to do is not stop, and you can learn new things. Like, I never thought I'd learn how to code. You know what I mean? I never thought I would learn how to do it. But, you know, I think if you don't apply an obstacle for yourself, you can really surprise yourself in the end of what you can learn to do. And I don't know, I feel like that's a rambly way of saying it, but that was the biggest lesson I think I've learned from the whole journey, is what is able to be done.
Yeah.
Like what is possible. And probably the biggest limiter for me was just my own self-doubt. You know, it's kind of silly now to think that, but
yeah. And I mean, I'm a big believer, and I think everything happens for a reason, right? And so I think, you know, all of those life decisions and moments brought us to where we are today. But I mean, learning things, like you talked about the idea before of like, who do you surround yourself with, right? To like open up those mindsets. Like if you were around the right people, you know, then you probably wouldn't have wound up with me. So thank God it didn't happen. But like, you know, if you were around the right people, right, then like you would have taken bigger chances. You would have seen that it was okay.
Well, I think people mean well, right? Like they want you to be safe and they want you to be okay.
Right.
You know, so when you talk to someone about something crazy, something big, they're like, oh no, be careful, you know? And it's not because they don't doubt you, it's because they just want you to be safe.
Yeah.
You know, like don't go put $100,000 on a house. Like that's a lot of money. And you're like, yeah. But so you almost innately discourage people, and you bet against them, and like there's this undertone of don't be too big, don't think too big, don't be too risky, you know, do the safe thing. And you know, I see that now with like our kids. You know, I want to go to the moon. I'm like, go to the moon. You can go to the moon. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if I'm smart enough or if I'm big enough for that. I'm like, go do it. You can do it. You want to do it. You got to work. You know, you gotta practice. You gotta get, you know, if you want to go to the moon, you gotta get good grades. So you can be an astronaut. You want to be, you know, an engineer. You got to know math, right? But it doesn't mean like just that. Instead of looking at it like, oh, do the thing that you're guaranteed. It's more like put the tools in your belt that you need in order to do it.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I've been much more cautious about my language when talking to other people with their big ideas, instead of being like, no, don't be careful. It's not like, okay, well, if you want that, then you got to do this.
Yeah.
You know?
Or you could take the approach that Salesforce did to you. Like, you can't do that.
Yeah, it's just flat out.
Just challenge them.
I just tried that once in a while.
Yeah.
There's no way you can have dinner on the table by 5. No way.
I'm like, dang it. All right, here we go.
Are any of your kids interested? Because your kids are teenagers.
Yeah.
Now, right?
We have 15 and almost 13 and then 10.
Are there any plans for them to be a part of the business? Or are they doing anything with you guys now?
I don't know. Maybe. It's funny. Our girls both want to be in medicine, and our son wants to be an engineer.
Nice.
So we'll see. But they're interested in real estate, and they're interested in rentals, but I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
I think it's big for me that they do things because they want to do them. You know what I mean? It's like the option is there. I mean, the reality is now I'm so much less involved in the day to day. It's like I don't do exciting stuff like for them, right? Like my son keeps out like. He's still upset 5 years ago he didn't get to tear down a wall. My daughter was homesick from school or whatever, and she was like hammering the wall down, right? So he's still upset. Like I don't do any of the cool stuff anymore, so it's less exciting for them. But I think as they get older, like, you know, we'll see where they want to be.
Yeah.
I think that's an important lesson though too, because especially in that 5-year period of time where we were just, I feel like, sacrificing everything to grow the business. We're like, we're doing this for the family. You're doing this. We have something to leave them, right? Like legacy. And then they're growing up and they maybe don't want it.
Yeah.
You know, and like you can just burn your whole life with your family and your spouse just trying to do the thing that you think that they want. And then turns out they never cared.
Yeah.
You know?
That's humbling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you doing it for them or are you doing it for yourself? You know,
Right, exactly.
You gotta have that honest conversation.
Yeah. I remember one time I was like reanalyzing, like, all right, what would it take to not quite be the Rockefellers, right? But have like this idea of like legacy success of like, what could we do? Where do I need to be to have money into a trust that would then fall out? And then I'm like, wait a minute, I'm going to kill myself. Like with that mindset of trying to get there and then miss out on the actual living experience with them. Like, and that balance point, like, what do they actually want from you? Like, it's crazy. They just want you. Like, where's your eyes?
Yeah. I think what's important to teach your kids, and a good lesson from real estate too, is financial literacy. Like, what are assets? What are liabilities? How do I make good investments? Whether they choose this or not.
Yeah.
I think teaching your kids financial literacy is the key to legacy wealth. And the same thing with skills, the skills of identifying opportunity and solving problems and building teams and being a good leader and a good team member. That's all legacy wealth in the end. That's generational wealth. Those are skills that you don't get at school. You get that in like the real world. Someone has to teach you that, you know? And so I think that is way more important than like having 100 houses for them to inherit one day when they didn't see you, you know?
It's 100 problems.
That's exactly. 100 tenants, just know. Yeah.
Okay, I have one more question, and this is on the career side. You guys obviously went through many years of schooling. How many years of schooling collectively did you guys go through?
I did 8.
After
After high school.
4, 6 after high school.
So how did you come to the decision to walk away from that? Like, what was that process? Was there like a morning season, or was it like this is an obvious decision? Like, walk me through that mindset.
We both had different reactions to that. You go first.
So, I mean, so for me, it really came down to the idea of I felt comfortable doing it when I could replace my income, you know, reliably, and then make that shift of time to be able to have my time freedom. And then if I could just replace my income, then I felt good about it. There was definitely a morning, like, I'm an emotional, hey, I didn't cry today. This is wonderful. You know, I am an emotional person, right? And I do have emotional responses and stuff. And it was the hardest thing. What I realized is that the hardest thing for me to give up, actually, as I was doing what was called a fellowship program. So as you graduated as a new grad, as a PA or an NP, you'd come in like basically under my wing, and I would help teach you the ropes of urgent care. And that was one of the hardest pieces for me to give up. And so now I get to do that in a different way, right, with my team and educating my team and training my team and those sort of things to kind of like make that level of impact. But that was probably the hardest part. And again, I guess I'm a big one for like just not now is not saying no, right? So like I'm just saying not now to medicine. So I still love medicine in some sort of, you know, idealistic world. Like I'd like to go back to, you know, when I worked, they call it PRN, like as needed, was really nice. Just working like one day a week, you know, you show up. I'm not stuck here all week long. I just come in, get to take care of people, no politics, and I walk out and I'm good. You know, I would love to go back to there. So that was the hardest thing of giving up, because we say we're helping people, which we are, right? We're helping people in the real estate world and sell their houses and they have real problems. But, you know, seeing somebody in their moment of weakness, bleeding out of their head or like terrible pain, feel like they're going to die, like it's just a different type of emotional paycheck for me to be able to help that. So I do want to go back to there, but it just came down to the idea of prioritization, money, time, this company that can give me a future that, you know, medicine was not going to be able to offer. Like I said, be able to give into those years of with my kids that I'm not going to get back.
Yeah, I struggled big time leaving. So I left 3 years ago. And so there was a period of time where I was doing all this stuff at one time. And I've come to realize I'm really bad with chapters. I don't want to let go. You know, it's hard. It was hard to like end the chapter of having babies. It was hard, you know, all these things. I was like, no, I want all the things. And I was running, you know, Left Main, Better Path, still working full time at the hospital. And then I was working part time, and it was just so much. And I had this whole kind of identity crisis of like, well, who am I? You know, I spent all this time, I got my dream job, like uptown, heart surgery. I love my colleagues. I love my patients. I was like doing everything I ever wanted and dreamt of doing. And then I had like this like blessing with, you know, success in the business world. I was like, well, what was I meant to do? You know, like, was I meant to do medicine? Was I meant to do that? And I've always considered, like, even, then if and still now, it's hard for me to be like, oh, hey, what do you do? And I want to say, oh, I'm a nurse practitioner. And that's like my gut, like how I introduce myself. And so I had this whole like, well, who am I? Can I be someone else? If I'm not a healthcare provider, it was funny. But then I think I reconciled it kind of similarly. Like, there's only so much time, and all my time is going to the hospital, like all the free time, right? Like the weekends, the call, the nights, I wasn't sleeping. And I may be physically able to do it, but like, no. But my family's not, like, what am I going to sacrifice all this and not be home? Like, for what?
Yeah.
And so it kind of came to a point where, like, there's only so much time. I can only do one. I have the blessing of having a choice. Like, this is crazy to have this choice. Like, I have two amazing choices and I can pick. Yeah. Well, I'm going to pick the one that I have results in the most time with my family. But it required me to, like, have this whole rewiring of who I am. And now when people are like, oh, who are you? What do you do? I'm like, oh, I like complex problems. I'm good at solving complex problems. And there's different ways for me to do that and take care of people. I can do that in critical care in the hospital, or I can do that with software, right? Like, and I love solving difficult things. Yeah. Is some days more than others, but like, that's in the end what I like to do. And that is, like, that's applicable in more than one scenario. Yeah. But I still have my license is inactive, as I think yours is still active, isn't it? Yeah.
He's hanging on.
I know. Mine's inactive now, so I think that there's still ways to give back and, like, indirectly help people. I still get plenty of pictures of rashes and heart questions and stuff like that. So, like, now it's just free. But I think that's always part of me. But it all came down to that time, and you kind of have to let go of some things.
You're gonna get, like, the 7 people watching this to, like, send you pictures of the rashes.
Yeah, like,
what is this?
Pants on with the rashes. Pants on with the rashes.
I have this rash recently. Like, I have a bicuspid aortic valve. What do I do? Oh. I'm like, well, come talk to me. I'll tell you about it.
Wow. Well, I appreciate you guys coming on. If anybody wants to stay in touch with you guys or follow along on your journey with family and business, where can they follow you at?
Instagram at Steph Betters.
I am less social media sensitive. Check me out. Facebook my name, I guess. I don't really know. Maybe I'll get back to you. Send a message to Stephanie. She'll get you in touch with me.
I'm the secretary.
That's awesome. Awesome. Appreciate it.
No, appreciate you having us on.
Yeah.